and wave my arms so I know where to cut. And hello, everyone. I am here today with Carlos Eiene of Insaneintherainmusic. And today we're going to, I'm just going to be conducting a little interview to talk about your journey with artistic space and the creative space that you have made for yourself as a content creator. Go ahead.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Good to have you. All right. So first question, I'm sure you get some of these a lot, but what artists have been your biggest inspiration throughout the majority of your career, or which artists have influenced your work the most, whether it pertains to your more recent arrangements or like your most original piano covers in your early career?
Um, so I think the the music artists that originally inspired me the most were the people who were making the game music that I was listening to when I was growing up.
Mm.
Um, and for me, one of the most I'm a huge Pokemon fan and a fan of a
Right.
lot of Nintendo games.
Mm-hmm.
And several composers that were really off the top of my head. Kazumi Totaka did a lot of music for a lot of the Animal Crossing music. Did music for Wave Race 64, which was the
Mm.
first game that I ever played. Um, so he's a huge influence. Also, composers like Goichi Nose, who is one of the main composers on the Pokemon series since like the era of Gold and Silver or Ruby and Sapphire.
Mm-hmm.
Goichi Nose, Hitomi Sato, Junichi Masuda, that whole team, and the other people who have been added to that team. So those are like my game music inspirations. Are the people that composed that music that was I was listening to when I was growing up. As for artists that are I guess um are more traditional artists who are putting out music on things like streaming platforms and not having their music played in games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I mean, I listen to a lot of music, and I have enough variation in the arrangements that I do that I think each arrangement sort of may borrow from this artist over here and may borrow from this artist over there.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as ones that I think are consistent, as a saxophone player, Michael Brecker has probably been the
Ah,
biggest influence on me
right.
because he's one of the my personal tenor saxophone goat. Super a huge inspiration to me. Other players include Joshua Redman, Bob Reynolds, Ben Wendell, just the modern era of um, tenor saxophone players. Um, those are who are influenced me in terms of like my solo vocabulary and my saxophone
Ah,
playing.
okay.
Um,
Cool. So they
in
still so
terms
they still
of
influence you today, like in your arrangements and stuff, and your playing.
oh yeah, I mean like any artist that I've listened to at any point in my life is like is still has some kind of influence. You know,
Right.
it's not like the influence of one artist like stops once I reach a certain point. It's all I have this analogy that I use of um having like a mental orchestra, right?
Ah.
And I think that everybody I've listened to, depending on how much I've listened to or internalized them, gets like their own little spot in like this big concert hall, you know. So also like Snarky Puppy, my favorite modern group. Snarky Puppy is super good. They have a huge section of that concert hall that's just dedicated to them, right?
Right.
And then there are other, you know, like Snarky Puppy, then all like the individual projects from the individual band members, like some of Michael League's own stuff, Bob Reynolds, his stuff, Bill Lawrence's albums, and Larnell. Oh gosh, Larnell, I love Larnell. Um, they all have a spot there, right? But
Right.
they live in the same concert hall as people like Stevie Wonder, Hiromi, Jacob Collier, gosh, um, I don't know, Ravel, you know,
Right.
all these different sorts of things, and they all live in your head together. And I just think that creativity is what happens when they get to talk to each other.
Right.
So.
This is this is actually just a ploy for me to see what artist you were listening to. That's all I wanted. No. No. So speaking of other artists, I want to hear more about your experiences collaborating with other creators during your career. People
hmm
like Saxologic, people like Patrick Bartley. For holy crap, that's
hmm
like that alone is amazing. And what it was like to work with them. One, for example, who was kind of slowly coming into his own style as a creator, Saxologic, and one who
Yeah.
is relatively the most advanced in his playing style, and definitely probably the most advanced creator I would venture to say you've worked with.
Yeah, well, I'd say most advanced in probably most advanced in like the jazz scene. You know,
Yes,
as far
absolutely.
as presence in the jazz scene goes, definitely It's definitely because Pat like crosses over, right? Pat has a presence in, the I guess the main the what is the mainstream modern jazz scene,
Right.
right? But he also has a huge background in obviously J music, video game music, anime
Right.
music, things like that.
Hmm.
Like he just moved to Japan, just recently, and
Oh,
is
really?
pursuing his dream of playing music in Japan. Um,
That's so cool.
so I still fangirl just a little bit when I get to sit next to him. The most recent time I got to see him was for my friend Dom Palombi's um his 4-year stream anniversary live stream. He put together this. He has a band called Game Night, which is comprised of a whole bunch of different
Mm.
video game music creators, and Pat is a member of it.
Oh.
And so I was sitting next to Pat during our live stream, which we did from Dom's friend's basement, and it's sometimes I think like, man, I'm just sitting next to Patrick Bartley and I'm just hearing him blow. It's really good. Um,
Right.
and I think, hmm, so the thing that I respect so much about Pat is that yes, he does like he is very well known in the modern jazz scene, and also the J Music Ensemble is pretty well known, I would say, in the world of jazz adjacent arrangements of gay music. But he's such a down to earth person, and he has a lot of interesting opinions and a lot of interesting things that he talks about, and always treats people with respect, and is just a really good guy. So I really like any chance I get to work with Pat, and I could say the same thing about Nathan. So Nathan Saxologic.
Oh, okay.
When I yeah, that's his first name. He goes by Nathan.
Middle name Saxologic.
And yeah, definitely. I'm sure that's what's on his birth certificate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I worked with him originally, yeah, he was just I think it was because the Mario, that was when he had just like started getting popular because of the Mario Kart lick, and I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
yeah, at the very beginning of that phase.
Uh-huh.
And he's grown a lot since then. He's grown into his own thing, and I thought, you know what, like I think it would be fun to make something with him. So I reached out, and at the time he didn't even have like he didn't have a microphone
Oh
or a
no.
recording setup. So I said, here. Yes, I actually I paid for
Oh my gosh.
his microphone, his basic microphone, his basic recording setup. I was like, here, just get this. This'll do you good enough to get started with. And then he used that, and we recorded our Rainbow Road video together. And since then, I don't know if we've worked on any specific. I don't think we've. Maybe we've been on the same thing somewhere, but I don't think we've done a straight up collab together. But we stay in contact, and we talk, and we've talked about YouTube a couple times, and he's also a great guy. And that's the basically nearly everybody I've met through doing the whole YouTube thing, and meeting and meeting these creators who have the shared passion of video game music and jazz, and some combination of those two. Everybody is just so nice. It is
Right.
such a nice sphere, and I think
Good.
it's because there's like a mutual respect of, this isn't like nobody is getting into VGM for clout, right? Because like, why would you like if you wanted to be, if your goal is just to get the most eyes on you as a musician, video game music jazz is like, why would you start there?
There's so little. It's so outside of the Venn diagram of music. It's just like it's in a little corner over here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great corner, and I really love where it is.
Absolutely.
It's just so funny that that if you're there, like you're there for a good reason, and
Mhm.
that's so true of all the people I've met. Even people who aren't like, I've met people who are into like who are more like DJs and producers.
Mhm.
What the tie between them and myself is that we both like video game music. I've met people who are more into metal, but who do metal covers of video game music. So I think it's just the bond between creators is pretty special, because if there's a mutual understanding of what goes into it.
That's awesome. Thank you. My friend and I almost covered that Rainbow Road song. That was like
Oh, really?
that was like the first arrangement of yours that like I really dove into. Like I had to get my dad to do the piano part, but I did like the keys part and the bass part. Then we did, and then my friend and I did the saxes, and
Oh, it's
it
cool.
never got finished because cause neither of us had a tenor, so we just transposed the tenor part to alto. So it never got made. It's in a file on my laptop somewhere. But yeah,
Mm, mm.
that's great. As someone who has like a significant amount of recordings on your channel, like I was scrolling through and I was like trying to get to the bottom, and it was like 10 years ago, and it was consistent uploads for
Yeah.
10 years. I was like, wow, that's insane. But
Hmm.
as someone who has a lot of recordings on your channel, it appears that there really isn't a moment of your life that like hasn't been recorded. You know, obviously your life isn't all music, but like a significant portion of it is,
Hmm.
right? Is there a moment in your career or maybe your regular life where you wish you had or possibly hadn't been recording?
Um, I think it's easy to look at the channel and see all the videos and think that, and like seems like, wow, your whole life must be on the internet, you know. But it's like it's. I mean, all that a viewer is really seeing is the moments that I choose to put on there, right? Or the moments
Right.
that I choose, um, to showcase a performance of mine. Which most videos in themselves are snippets of me at several different points in time, you know, recording and
Mm-hmm.
overdubbing instruments together. So it's not like, you know, it's not like it's a raw snapshot of a single moment in time. Most of the videos are not like that. There are some that are more recording with multiple people and have like a whole ensemble, and those things are more,
Mm-hmm.
you know, those are more, I guess, you could be there in person and hear it similarly to how it was in the video, as opposed to hearing one track at one instrument recorded at a time. Um, I think the only things that like I wish had been recorded maybe were just, I don't know, like um uh, concerts or ensembles that I've played with where there was a good musical moment that happened on
Ah,
stage that
yeah.
I wish was recorded. Um, and in those situations, like oftentimes a lot of it is recorded, but I haven't had access to the footage or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just like maybe the engineers were recording it, but because I was like a featured artist, you know, like it wasn't given to me, it was given to
Right.
the band leader. Um, so I think those are the only times really. I it's not really something I think about, like wishing
Mm-hmm.
um it had like things had been recorded or not. I mean,
Right.
if I have something I want to upload to the channel, it's because I have an idea for a vision of something that I want to make,
Mm-hmm.
and then usually that kind of I break that down and I figure out what goes into that process, so that pretty clearly delineates what needs to get recorded for a video to exist, and I'm pretty comfortable
Right.
with figuring when that happens or not. So I wouldn't say there's too many
Okay.
that I wish were done differently or anything
Right.
like that.
Cool. As someone who has like not been posting as regularly, but I have posted content
Hmm.
for a couple years now. When I was younger, I would just post like solo saxophone covers of like songs we did in church that day
Yeah.
or something. But this is like
Hmm.
sixth, seventh grade me, and I would go and
Hmm.
and my friends would go back and find my channel and be like, "Dude, that was you!" Like, and it was they're so bad. They're so terribly bad. There's just
Yeah.
middle school
Yeah.
alto sax playing like just it's terrible. So I guess like, do you ever look back at your old like tenor sax videos when you were like just picking it up and think like, man, I want to purge that just like so badly, or like,
You know, I have a couple opinions about that. I think that, on one hand, um, I recognize that every recording of myself at any point in time is a snippet of who I was at that point in my life and what my abilities were on that instrument at that point. And that's all a part of me being where I am today,
mm,
right? And I am pretty happy with where I am today, you know, all
I
things considered. There are still things I want to do.
right, but you
But
can't
there, in
complain.
terms of
Yeah,
right, and honestly, even if I hadn't achieved the things that I have in terms of and what one person might call traditional success metrics, I think just being okay with being okay and satisfied with where you are as a musician and a creator, like I think that's an internal thing that you are to resolve with yourself, that you don't need to go and seek validation from other people to get necessarily.
right.
Um, So in one hand, it's like, yeah, it's all a part of the life. Now, granted, if someone's listening to that, like if it's someone else listening to that in my presence, that's when I start to cringe. I'm like,
Right,
oh
just like,
gosh, wait,
no.
this isn't the me I want you to see. Just watch a
No.
different video. Because
Exactly.
I have no problem with someone watching one of my more recent videos and
Obviously, yeah.
I guess forming it like watching one of my more recent videos with me in their presence and forming an opinion about it that way, because it's like, okay, this is kind of an up to date like representation of what I can
Mhm.
do and who I am. So uh yeah, there's good in it, and there's times when I cringe.
Right.
But I have I have privated some old like non-music videos, like things where like I'm talking or just like update videos, because I don't think those really contribute that much at this
Right.
point, unless you just really want to go back and find out how I was as a person back then, which is a
Right.
little weird. But um, they they are privated on my
Right.
most of them are private on my channel, but they still exist in my heart.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um shifting gears a little bit, moving towards more your time at Berkeley. The Berkeley sphere
Hmm.
is kind of, it's always full of everyone doing their own unique and cool thing. Like, that's kind of like Berkeley's motto is like, be your true self, and like that's who we want to see here at our school. And it feels very easy to compare yourself to others. Like, my music isn't as cool as theirs, or like people like theirs more than mine, or just things like that. Did you ever feel like you were competing for the same creative space as others, specifically those who had the same major as you? Because I know you were a CWP major, right?
Yeah, I was CWP and I minored in video game scoring.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
For those who don't know, CWP is the Contemporary Writing and Production major at Berkeley. So
mm-hmm,
did you feel like
hmm
you had to compete with in like for the same musical space as others?
In my first semester or two, I definitely felt like I was kind of enveloped in that whole, in that, like the Berkeley. I guess I called it the Berkeley bubble at the time, and I think some people still call it that,
Right.
which is like the feeling of um wanting to pursue a level of status at the school itself,
Mm-hmm.
as if which is understandable, like if you're regularly associating with people from the school, you want to be well known, and it feels good to be popular. It feels good to have people,
Exactly. Yeah.
value you in that kind of way. And
Networking.
um
You know.
yeah, and um that definitely kind of tripped me up at the beginning, in my first couple semesters a little bit. I felt a little bit like like, oh wow, this is different. Like, this is different. I'm not like, now I'm around all these other music people and they're doing their own thing, and how do I get my name out there? How do I do this? How do I don't know, curry favor with the people who are getting all the gigs or getting all the calf shows,
Oh,
and I
exactly.
was
Yeah.
a part of like, yeah, I was a part of a couple of, early like bands, and went like bands that never went anywhere, or did did any like played anybody's recital that I could, and the thing is that like eventually I stopped worrying about that. I don't remember what exactly happened, but um at some point I just kept doing my YouTube thing, which was really me. That was that, like,
Yeah.
YouTube has like the whole my whole pursuit there has really just been me making what I found interesting. And then over time, as I did that, some people like at the school came to know me for that, and came to know that that was the thing I did. And I in a way, me not focusing so much on, the whole Berkeley ladder or competing in that sense, actually like helped me
Mm.
climb that ladder to some extent. I never felt like I was at the top, and that was never my goal, but I definitely did meet, and had my fair share of opportunities that were pretty cool. Um, I think just because, one, spending like the sheer amount of time of spending more time with the school, and being a good person, a person that people enjoyed hanging out with, I like to think. Um, and also just being willing to share what I was passionate about, which is specifically video game music.
Right.
And then there were way more people than I expected at the school who were like, "Oh yeah, video game music is cool," and or either that, or they were just interested in me having some kind of musical project that I was really serious about, and releasing stuff consistently with. Um, so that was how I dealt with it. Really, was just finding my own thing that I really cared about, finding my own lane, and just kind of sticking with that for a while, and then eventually, I think um, people seem to resonate with that and come to know me for that.
Right. I found that a lot of kids going to Berkeley and people at Berkeley kind of ask these same kind of questions, like how do you deal with the competition, and and all these Berkeley
Hmm.
alumni or graduates or current upper semester students are all saying the same thing, and I feel like maybe we're not finding the comment that like you guys are all giving the same answer. Maybe we should just listen to it. Like just
Well,
stay in
I,
your
I
lane
think
and
I th- I think it's something that you need. Like, I think you kind of need to have that experience
right.
of feeling like you need to compete, right? Because once you go through that, that is what going through that experience of feeling like you need to compete kind of shows you like just how valuable it is to find your own thing, and
Mm,
and it shows you that the other way doesn't really work, right?
right.
If you're always trying to fit yourself into the mold of whatever the ideal popular what a musician at the school, whatever that is. It's
Right.
like if you try and fit yourself into a box that you don't naturally fit in, you can only stay in there for so long, you know. And I think
Exactly.
that's why it tends to happen for people when they first get there, right? Is because they try it out, they spend a certain amount of time doing that, and then it either works for them or it doesn't. Most often, probably doesn't, and then they'll find their own self through that process.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
You know.
Um,
Hmm.
so moving on past after now that you've graduated, your channel, your YouTube channel has seemed to have like a very clear direction since day one. You know, from the original piano covers of Donkey Kong to your full blown
Hmm.
like original arrangements. Your latest album, which I love by the way,
Uh huh.
very cool. If I had a
Thank
record
you.
player, I would buy it on vinyl. But we're not going to get into that. In one way or another, it's been heavily influenced by video game music, and I know, as you discussed earlier, that's been your favorite kind of music all growing up. You know, um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and every all of your arrangements have seemed to stem from your love for the style. So, has your quote game plan evolved over the past 10 years in any drastic ways, or has it been more or less the same?
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely gone through a lot of revisions and changes. I think there are plenty of things that have changed, but the interesting thing is what hasn't, and the thing that hasn't is the video game music part. Like
Mm,
that has been the constant throughout all 10 years. You know,
right.
not even the jazz. The jazz part specifically hasn't always been consistent. In the first, I think in the first year of my channel, I wasn't even doing like jazz or interest specifically. I was just playing, basically piano covers of video game music with the
Right.
occasional saxophone because that's what I was playing in school at the time. And eventually I just kind of stumbled into doing the jazz arrangements and I thought, "Oh, this is kind of a fun way to give myself like a creative prompt to arrange this song in a way that I like." And that was sort of the first evolution, was evolving into the jazz covers thing.
Hmm.
And then over time my definition of, well, what is a good jazz arrangement of a video game piece, right?
Mm,
And I evolved. That was me just evolving my understanding of what jazz music is, what it sounds like, what parts of it resonate with me, what other genres other than jazz have aspects that also resonate with me. Um, so I've just been over time. I just took elements from things that interested me and sort of just pulled them into my own consciousness and my own way of thinking. And you know, I kept doing covers for several years, and then recently I did my original album, Insane in
hmm.
the Rain, as part of what feels like a first step for me for what exists beyond YouTube for me.
Mm,
And I think YouTube has always been, or has been, and will continue to be a very good experimental place for me. And it was where I learned, so like basically like all my like I the venue where I learned all my skills, like learning to play a new instrument came from creating a new arrangement and having, let's say I had an electric bass part that I had to learn to play in the video, and I guess, well,
hmm.
um I could either get a virtual VST, a VST of an electric bass, and just learn to play it on my MIDI keyboard,
Uh-huh.
or I could do the real thing, which might sound better in some situations. And I thought, well, if I want to make the best music possible, then I might as well, get a real one and just learn to play it that way, learn to play it the
Right.
actual way that the best bassists in the world do it. Um, so that was the whole. That's where learning different instruments evolved, and that's where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, I think, particularly this year, I think um my game plan is evolving in a way that I am still not exactly sure where it's going.
Okay.
Um, because I recognize that um I do I do I do really enjoy making YouTube videos, and it's very fun. But I do feel like I feel like there's still more I want to do, and there is something greater out there than just consistently making these YouTube videos that I think
Right.
I want to do. And I'm not exactly sure where that lies yet. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with video game music. If I had to make a guess, it would
Just an
probably have something to do with
educated
that.
guess, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why in the recent year I've been experimenting with these different things. Like I did Insane in the Rain as an experiment for my first original album, which is actually which is not directly tied to video game music at all, but
Right.
I get comments from people, and
Yeah.
I imagine you've probably heard this as well, having listened to it, that a lot of it, like, you can hear the video
Oh,
game music
for
influence
sure. No,
on all the
absolutely.
tracks.
Yeah. I can hear
Yeah,
like
and that's
snippets
something.
from your different stuff in it. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and that's something I'm really proud of. In that, I don't think Insane in the Rain would necessarily belong in a video game, right? Because I wasn't writing it with that intent, and there's
Hmm.
certain things, stylistic things you want to accommodate. But I think that regardless, like, that video game music I've consumed is like a part of my person and my creative vision going forward. So I've been experimenting with that, experimenting with writing my own music for video games, doing things like that, and also getting to collaborate with a couple people that have been very interesting. I recently I worked on a song with Toby Fox recently.
Oh, okay.
Toby Fox is the creator of Undertale. He also wrote the music for Undertale.
Oh,
He did
sick.
music on a song that he and Itoki Hana, who's a Japanese vocalist, they did that together, and I worked with them to provide some mixing help and horn section parts for that. I also recently got to play on the soundtrack for Skullgirls, which is a fighting game.
Okay.
Um,
Nice.
so I've been trying out. I've been lucky enough to have these things come my way and try out these different things. Right, see what sticks, see what doesn't stick, and learn from that. Um, so I haven't quite figured out exactly where, like, what the new, or like the next, where my game plan is going to evolve into, for the next, like, 20 years, because I don't think it's going to be just making YouTube videos. I think there's something else,
Right.
but I haven't quite figured it out yet. So I'm in this period of just trying things out and seeing what sticks, and
Hmm.
I know eventually something will work out. But until then, just I'm seeing where things go and trying to follow what feels right and what feels exciting to me, and just doing the best job I can with the tasks that I have,
Right.
time given at the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. The best YouTubers never stay on YouTube for long, right?
Hmm.
So
I mean, I don't know if that's, like, necessarily always true.
well, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, I just yeah. Um so as we
yeah.
move into wrapping up, I have one last question for
Mm,
you.
mm.
Obviously I have to ask this as for one of my biggest inspirations in music. What words of wisdom do you have for students like myself who are navigating, this shared creative space amongst, other kids at Berkeley and, even outside the Berkeley bubble, with similar goals to, blaze our own paths and make our own future and see where it takes us?
Yeah. Well, first off, you are in a great place to do that. Berkeley is such a nice little incubator because it exposes you to so many things.
Right.
And I think the best thing that you can do is sorry, is follow things that genuinely excite you, right? Is when there's something that comes out, or you're looking up something and it's like, whoa, this is interesting. Like pursue that, like, very, like, in depth. For example, like, what happened to me was I found these, like, I was listening to jazz and I found these recordings that I really liked, and I was like, wow, I really want to understand this solo. I want to understand how this person plays this. So I transcribe it, right? Then I learn how that works. And then I was like, well, how do I like I want to have a record that sounds like this pro jazz record. How do they make it? Well, they have the saxophone, piano, bass, drums. The saxophone's recorded with a condenser mic. The piano's got, 2 pencil microphones, and I dug into the engineering, figure all that stuff out.
Mm.
And then I figure out, okay, what kind of symbols is the drummer using? What break down these things that you're interested into, like their tiniest parts, and try and understand all of them. That's exactly what I've done with when I transcribe video game music to arrange it, right? All transcribing is just taking the final completed thing and breaking it down into the individual notes, or like individual chords, individual sections. And that helps you understand, like what makes Dire Dire Docks sound so good from Super Mario 64. From a music theory perspective, just taking things you're interested in and analyzing them and breaking them down as much as possible. That's been a very consistent thing for me for all these years, and it's provided me some success. It may or may not work for you, but it's the best advice I can give.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview and sharing your wisdom with me and the rest of the people who will watch this video. My roommate says hi. Shannon LeClaire says hi. She's my PI instructor.
Oh, Shannon! I love Shannon. Shannon is so great. Best saxophone teacher I've ever had. Period.
For sure.
She's so great.
Yeah. No, I love her so far. She's great. And for those of you watching, check out the album. Go listen to it now. I command thee. And as always, stay insane in the rain. Outro. Boom. I'll cut
better than I could have done.
that.